Daniel's phone buzzed on his nightstand. His eyes opened in the dark. The clock glowed. 12:03 a.m. Nobody calls at midnight with good news. He picked up the phone. The voice was cold and quick. Daniel Cross. Come to the office. Right now. What's wrong? Daniel asked, sitting up fast. Just come. Top floor. Don't be late. Click. The call ended. Daniel's heart started beating fast, like drums in his chest. He worked as an engineer at Sterling Tech, a huge company in a tall glass building downtown. He fixed computers and kept systems running smoothly. For 7 years, he'd been the guy everyone trusted when things broke. But something felt wrong tonight. Very wrong. He got dressed, his hands shaking a little. Outside, the city was dark and quiet. Streetlights made long shadows on empty sidewalks. Daniel drove through red lights that blinked yellow at this late hour. The glass building stood tall against the black sky, like a giant made of mirrors. Inside, the lobby was too quiet. His footsteps echoed. The security guard wouldn't look at him. That made Daniel's stomach feel tight and twisty. The elevator took forever. Each floor number lit up slowly. 10, 15, 20, 25. When the doors opened on the top floor, Daniel saw them. 6 people stood in the big conference room. The lights were bright, too bright. In the middle stood Margaret Hale, the company's most powerful boss. She wore a black suit and her eyes were hard like stones. "Sit down, Mr. Cross," she said. Her voice could freeze water. Daniel sat. He felt like a mouse surrounded by cats. "At exactly 11:42 tonight," Margaret began, "our entire system crashed. Every single computer. Gone. Dark. Dead." Daniel's eyes went wide. "What? How?" "I'm not finished," Margaret snapped. "When the system died, we lost everything. Contracts worth millions of dollars. Work from hundreds of people. Client trust. Everything." She walked closer to Daniel. Her shoes clicked on the floor like a clock ticking. "Our tech team found something interesting in the computer records," she continued. "Someone used an override key, a special password that can control everything. And do you know whose name showed up, Mr. Cross?" Daniel's mouth went dry. I didn't touch anything tonight. I was home sleeping until you called." "Your name," Margaret said slowly, "is right there in the records. You had access to the override key. You were the one who could have prevented this, or caused it." "No." Daniel stood up fast. "That's not possible. I wrote a report 6 months ago. I warned everyone about those override keys. I said too many people had access, and it was dangerous. I said, 'Enough.'" Margaret's voice was like thunder. "I've heard enough excuses. Do you know what your mistake cost this company? Do you even care?" Daniel's heart pounded so hard he thought everyone could hear it. "Please, just look at my report. I sent it to everyone. I warned you this could happen. I told you the system wasn't safe." But Margaret pulled out a paper from her pocket. She unfolded it slowly, like she was enjoying this moment. "This is a termination letter," she said. "You're fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You have 10 minutes to collect your things from your desk." The room started spinning. Daniel felt like he was falling even though he was standing still. "You can't do this," he whispered. "I didn't do anything wrong. Please, just check the records carefully. Check my report. I was trying to help. 10 minutes, Mr. Cross. Then I never want to see you in this building again." 2 security guards appeared at the door. Big men with serious faces. They walked toward Daniel like he was dangerous. Everyone in the room stared at him. Some looked angry. Some looked scared. None of them looked like they believed him. Daniel walked to his desk in a fog. His hands shook as he put his coffee mug in a cardboard box. His picture of his mom. His favorite pen. A plant that was almost dead anyway. Such small things. 7 years of work. And this is what fit in one small box. People peeked out of their offices as he walked past. Some whispered. Some pointed. The security guard stayed close behind him, like he might run away or steal something. The elevator ride down felt like falling off a cliff in slow motion. In the lobby, Other workers were arriving for the early morning shift. They all stopped and stared. Everyone saw Daniel Cross, the engineer who everyone trusted, being walked out by security guards. His face burned with shame. His eyes started to sting, but he wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of them. The guards walked him to the front door. The glass door slid open. Cold night air hit his face. "Don't come back," one guard said. "If you do, we'll call the police." Then they went inside and locked the doors. Daniel stood on the sidewalk, holding his box. The big glass building reflected the streetlights. Up on the top floor, he could see the conference room windows. Margaret was probably still up there, telling everyone how she'd solved the problem by getting rid of him. His phone buzzed. A text message from a coworker. "Dude, what happened? Everyone's saying you crashed the whole system on purpose." Then another text. "Did you really try to sabotage the company?" And another. "I can't believe you'd do something like that." Daniel turned off his phone. He walked to his car and put the box in the passenger seat. Then he sat there in the dark parking lot for a long time, staring at nothing. But something small was growing in his chest. Not anger, not sadness. Something quieter but stronger. He reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. Inside were printed copies of the report he'd sent 6 months ago. The report that warned about the override keys. The report that explained exactly how the system could crash if people weren't careful. The report that nobody read. His hands stopped shaking. They fired him. They shamed him. They made everyone think he was a bad guy. But Daniel knew something they didn't know yet. He knew the truth. And somehow, someday he was going to prove it, even if it took years. Even if nobody believed him. Even if he had to do it all alone. The truth was in this folder. And truth, Daniel remembered his mother once saying, is like a seed buried in dirt. It might take a long time to grow, but once it breaks through the ground, nothing can push it back down. Daniel started his car and drove home through the empty streets. In his rear-view mirror, the glass building got smaller and smaller. But this wasn't the end of his story. It was just the beginning. 7 years is a long time to carry a secret. Daniel kept his folder in a safe place. Every single day, he looked at those papers, the report he'd written, the warnings nobody listened to, the proof that he'd tried to stop the disaster before it happened. But proof doesn't mean much when nobody wants to listen. The first year was the hardest. Daniel applied for jobs at other tech companies. Every single interview started the same way. "So, Mr. Cross, I see you worked at Sterling Tech. Why did you leave?" Daniel would take a deep breath. "They let me go after a system crash. But I was innocent. I actually warned them it would happen." The interviewers would smile politely. Then they'd say, "Thank you for coming in. We'll call you." They never called. Word spreads fast in the tech world. People heard stories. "That's the guy who crashed Sterling Tech's whole system. I heard he cost them millions. Stay away from him." Daniel worked small jobs to pay rent. He fixed computers at a repair shop. He helped old ladies set up their email. He taught kids how to code at the library on weekends. Every night, he came home to his tiny apartment and opened that folder. He read his report again and again, like a prayer, like a promise to himself. "I'm not crazy. I'm not a bad person. I was right, and someday everyone will know it." His old coworkers stopped calling after the first year. Even his good friend Marcus, who used to eat lunch with him every day, stopped answering texts. One day, Daniel saw Marcus at a coffee shop. He walked over, smiling. "Hey, Marcus, it's been forever." Marcus looked uncomfortable. He glanced around like he was checking if anyone was watching. "Hey, Daniel, look, I can't really talk right now. I'm still at Sterling Tech, and, it's complicated." "I understand," Daniel said quietly, but his heart felt heavy. Marcus left without even finishing his coffee. That's when Daniel learned the hardest lesson. When powerful people say you're guilty, even your friends start to believe it. But Daniel didn't give up. In year 3, he started writing letters. He wrote to the tech board that oversees companies. He wrote to journalists. He wrote to lawyers. He explained everything carefully, attaching copies of his old report. Most letters got no response. Some people wrote back saying, "We can't help you." One lawyer said, "Fighting a company like Sterling Tech would cost millions. I'm sorry." Daniel kept the rejection letters in another folder. His wall of no's, he called it. But he kept writing. In year 5, something interesting happened. Daniel got a job at a small tech company called Bright Solutions. The owner, a woman named Sarah, actually listened to his story. She read his report. She looked at the dates and the warnings. "You know what?" Sarah said, "I believe you, and I think you're exactly the kind of careful, honest person I need on my team." For the first time in 5 years, Daniel felt like he could breathe again. At Bright Solutions, he worked hard. He fixed problems. He warned people when he saw danger, and people listened. But at night, he still thought about Sterling Tech, about Margaret Hale standing in that bright conference room, deciding his life was over, about all those people who watched him get walked out by security guards. The truth was still buried, and Daniel needed it to grow. In year 6, Daniel did something risky. He contacted a friend who still worked at Sterling Tech, a quiet guy in accounting named James who had always been kind to him. Daniel sent him a careful message. "James, I know this is strange after all these years, but I need to know, did they ever figure out what really caused the crash? Did anyone ever read my report?" For 3 weeks, James didn't respond. Daniel thought he'd made a mistake. Then, late one Tuesday night, his phone buzzed. "James, meet me tomorrow. The coffee shop on 5th Street. 7 a.m. Come alone." Daniel barely slept that night. The next morning, James sat in the corner booth, looking nervous. His hands shook as he stirred his coffee. "I could lose my job for this," James whispered. "But you deserve to know the truth." Daniel leaned forward. His heart was pounding. "About 6 months ago," James said, "the company hired new auditors. They're going through all the old records, checking everything. And Daniel, they found something." "What?" Daniel's voice came out like a croak. "They found your report, the one from 6 months before the crash. It was buried in old emails, but it was there. You warned them about the override keys. You explained exactly what could go wrong. You were right about everything." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "I knew it. I knew I was right." "There's more," James continued. "The auditors checked the computer logs from the night of the crash. Really checked them, not like they did 7 years ago. And Daniel, your name is in the system. Yes, but you never logged in that night. Someone else used your access code." The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too hot. "Who?" Daniel asked. James looked around nervously. Robert Chun, one of the senior executives. He had access to everyone's codes. The company gave top people way too much access. Exactly what you warned about. Robert was trying to fix something that night, used your code by mistake, and boom, everything crashed. Did he know? Did Robert know he blamed the wrong person? "I don't know," James said sadly. "Maybe he was scared. Maybe he didn't realize what happened. But Margaret Hale made the decision to fire you so fast. Nobody had time to check properly. She wanted to show everyone she was strong, that she was taking action. You were the easiest target." Daniel sat back in his chair. 7 years. 7 years of shame, of rejection, of people crossing the street to avoid him. And it was all because Margaret Hale needed to look powerful. "What happens now?" Daniel asked. "The auditors are presenting their findings to the board of directors next week." James said, "Daniel, this is going to blow up. The truth is coming out whether Sterling Tech wants it to or not." James finished his coffee and stood up. "I'm sorry about what happened to you. A lot of us are. We should have spoken up 7 years ago. We should have asked more questions." After James left, Daniel sat alone in the coffee shop for a long time. The folder at home wasn't just papers anymore. It was proof. It was validation. It was the truth finally breaking through the dirt, just like a seed growing into something nobody could ignore. But Daniel didn't feel happy. He felt tired. 7 years tired. That afternoon, he went to the park and sat on a bench. Kids were playing on swings. People were walking their dogs. Life was just happening all around him, normal and peaceful. He thought about Margaret Hale. Was she scared right now? Did she know the auditors found the truth? Was she sitting in her big office, worried about what would happen next? Part of Daniel wanted her to feel the same shame he'd felt, the same fear, the same loneliness. But a bigger part of him just wanted peace. He wanted to sleep without anger in his chest. He wanted to walk past a tech company without his stomach getting tight. He wanted his name back. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Hello? Mr. Cross? A woman's voice, professional and careful. This is Patricia Holmes from Sterling Tech's legal department. We need to speak with you about an urgent matter regarding your previous employment. Could you come to our offices tomorrow at 10 a.m.? Daniel's hand gripped the phone tight. Why? There was a pause. Then, Mr. Cross, some new information has come to light. Information that changes everything. Please come tomorrow. It's important. Will Margaret Hale be there? Daniel asked. Another pause. Ms. Hale has been asked to attend, yes. Daniel closed his eyes. 7 years of waiting. 7 years of carrying that folder. 7 years of refusing to disappear. I'll be there, he said. When he hung up, he looked at the sky. Clouds were moving slowly, going somewhere. Everything moves eventually, he thought. Even the heaviest, darkest clouds. Tomorrow, Daniel would walk back into that glass building. Tomorrow, Margaret Hale would have to face him. Tomorrow, the truth would stop being a secret. His phone rang again. It was Sarah from Bright Solutions. Daniel, the strangest thing just happened. Sterling Tech's board of directors called me. They want to know about your work here, your character, your skills. I told them you're the most honest, careful engineer I've ever worked with. What's going on? Daniel smiled for the first time in 7 years. Really smiled. The truth is going on, he said. Finally, that night, Daniel took out his folder one last time. He read through every page. The warnings he'd written, the careful explanations, the dates and times that proved he'd tried to stop the disaster. Tomorrow, this folder would mean everything. Tomorrow, 7 years of silence would end. Tomorrow, Margaret Hale's hands would shake just like his hat on that terrible night. Daniel stood outside the glass building at 9:55 a.m. 7 years ago, security guards had pushed him out these doors. 7 years ago, everyone had watched him leave in shame. Today, he walked back in with his head held high. The lobby looked the same. Shiny floors, tall ceilings. But everything felt different. The security guard at the desk looked at him strangely, then checked his computer. Mr. Cross? Yes, you're expected. Top floor, conference room A. The same conference room where it all began. Daniel's heart beat fast as the elevator climbed. But this time, it wasn't fear making his heart race. It was something else. Something that felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing you have wings. The elevator doors opened. Patricia Holmes, the lawyer, was waiting. She was a thin woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Mr. Cross, thank you for coming. I know this must be difficult. Where's Margaret Hale? Daniel asked. Already inside, along with the board of directors, our lead auditor and legal counsel. Patricia's voice became softer. Mr. Cross, before we go in, I want you to know something. What happened to you 7 years ago was wrong. Completely wrong. And today we're going to make it right. She opened the conference room door. 12 people sat around a long table. Margaret Hale sat at the far end, and for the first time since Daniel had known her, she looked small. Her face was pale. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap. When she saw Daniel, she looked away. Please sit, Mr. Cross, said an older man at the head of the table. I'm Richard Barnes, chairman of the board. Thank you for coming today. Daniel sat down. The folder was in his bag, but he didn't need it anymore. These people had already seen the truth. Richard cleared his throat. Mr. Cross, 3 weeks ago, our new auditing team made some discoveries while reviewing old system records. Discoveries that have significant implications for this company and for you. He nodded to a woman with glasses. She stood up, holding a thick report. Mr. Cross, She began, "My name is Dr. Lisa Chun, lead auditor. My team examined the system crash that occurred 7 years ago at 11:42 p.m. We found several critical facts that were missed in the original investigation." She clicked a button. A screen lit up with computer data. First, we found an email you sent 6 months before the crash. A detailed report warning about security problems with the override access system. You specifically stated that too many people had access to these codes, and that a crash was not just possible, but likely if changes weren't made. Daniel's throat felt tight. Someone had finally read his report. Second, Dr. Chin continued, we examined the actual login records from the night of the crash. While your access code was used, the login came from a computer in the executive suite. A computer you had no physical access to. The IP address proves you weren't even in the building. Margaret Hale's face turned red. Third, we discovered that Robert Chun, a senior executive at the time, had master access to all override codes, including yours. He attempted to fix a system error that night and accidentally triggered the cascade failure you had warned about. The room was so quiet Daniel could hear people breathing. Mr. Cross, Richard Barnes said heavily, you were fired without a proper investigation. Your warnings were ignored. Your reputation was destroyed. And none of it was your fault. He paused. We owe you an apology that's 7 years overdue. Daniel looked at Margaret. She was staring at the table, her jaw clenched tight. Ms. Hale, Richard said, turning to her, do you have anything to say to Mr. Cross? Margaret's hands trembled. She finally looked up at Daniel. Her eyes were hard, but there was fear behind them, too. I made a decision based on the information I had at the time, she said stiffly. The situation was urgent. I acted in the best interest of the company. You acted to protect yourself, Daniel said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. You were scared. The board was angry. You needed someone to blame, quickly, and I was convenient. Margaret's mouth opened, then closed. Did you even read my report? Daniel asked. Did anyone? Silence. We found your report buried in archived emails. Patricia Holmes said softly. It was never flagged as important. It was never brought to executive attention. Daniel nodded slowly. He'd known this, but hearing it confirmed still hurt. Richard Barnes pulled out a document. Mr. Cross, Sterling Tech would like to offer you full reinstatement to your previous position with back pay for 7 years, plus additional compensation for damages to your reputation and career. We're also prepared to provide a public statement clearing your name and explaining what really happened. He slid the paper across the table. Daniel looked at it. 7 years of lost salary. His job back. His name cleared. Everything he'd fought for. Everyone waited. Daniel picked up the paper. He read it carefully. Then he put it down. No, he said. The room erupted in whispers. No. Richard looked shocked. Mr. Cross, this is a very generous offer. I don't want my old job back, Daniel said clearly. I don't want to work for a company that fires people without checking facts, that ignores warnings, that cares more about looking strong than being right. He looked at Margaret. 7 years ago, you had a choice. You could have spent 1 hour checking the facts. 1 hour. Instead, you destroyed my life in 10 minutes. Margaret's face was white now. I want my name cleared, Daniel continued. I want the public statement. I want people to know I was innocent, but I don't want to come back here. What do you want? Richard asked. Daniel thought about his small apartment, his job at Bright Solutions with Sarah, who had believed in him, the kids he taught coding to at the library, who looked at him like he was a hero. I want a written apology from Ms. Hale, Daniel said. Not a legal one, a real one. I want her to admit she was wrong. Everyone looked at Margaret. She sat frozen for a long moment. Then, slowly, she pulled out a piece of paper. Her hand shook as she wrote. When she finished, she walked around the table and placed it in front of Daniel. He read it. Mr. Cross, I was wrong. I fired you without properly investigating. I let my fear and pride hurt an innocent person. I am sorry for the pain I caused. You deserve better. Margaret Hale. It wasn't much, just a few sentences. But they were true. Thank you, Daniel said quietly. Richard cleared his throat. Ms. Hale has submitted her resignation, effective immediately. The board accepted it this morning. Margaret stood up without a word. She walked to the door, her heels clicking on the floor just like they had 7 years ago. But this time, she was the one leaving in shame. She paused at the door and looked back at Daniel. For what it's worth, she said, her voice cracking. I really am sorry. Then she was gone. 3 months later, Daniel sat in a coffee shop reading the newspaper. The headline read, Sterling Tech clears former engineer's name after 7-year mistake. The article told the whole story. His warnings, the ignored report, the rush firing, the truth finally uncovered. His phone had been ringing all week. Job offers from big companies. Reporters wanting interviews. Old co-workers sending apologies. Marcus had called yesterday. Daniel, I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. I should have been a better friend. Daniel had forgiven him. Holding anger was too heavy. Sarah from Bright Solutions sat down across from him with 2 coffees. So, superstar, have you decided which giant company you're going to work for? Daniel smiled. I'm staying at Bright Solutions. If you'll still have me. Sarah's eyes got wet. Are you serious? Daniel, you could work anywhere now. You could make 10 times what I pay you. I know, Daniel said. But you believed me when nobody else did. That matters more than money. He looked out the window at the city. Somewhere out there, Margaret Hale was probably looking for a new job, probably learning what it felt like to have people whisper about you. Daniel didn't feel happy about that. He just felt done. The truth had finally grown through the dirt. His name was clean. He could sleep at night without anger choking him. You know what the best part is? Daniel said to Sarah, when those kids at the library ask me about dealing with hard times, I have a real story to tell them now. About patience, about truth, about not giving up even when everyone says you're wrong. Sarah smiled. You're a good man, Daniel Cross. I'm just a man who refused to disappear, Daniel said. That night, Daniel took his folder, the one he kept for 7 years, and put it in a box in his closet. He didn't need to look at it every day anymore. The truth wasn't hidden now. It was free. It was known. It was finished. Daniel made dinner, watched a movie, and went to bed early. He slept deeply, peacefully, without dreams of glass buildings or security guards or shame. 7 years is a long time to carry a secret, but truth is patient. Truth is strong. And truth, once it breaks free, can never be buried again. So here's my question for you. If someone powerful tried to destroy your life like they did to Daniel, would you stay quiet and wait for truth like he did? Or would you fight back loudly right away? Think about it. There's no wrong answer, just different kinds of courage. If this story made you feel something, hit that like button. If you want more true stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, subscribe so you never miss one. And share this with someone who needs to remember that truth always wins in the end, even when it takes time. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to disappear, even when the whole world wants you to. What would you do? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. Thanks for reading. See you in the next story.